5, City of Mount Vernon Council meeting to order. Not aware of any changes made to the agenda. Or Chris, anything we need to highlight?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anybody that would like to address the council on the item? All right, seeing no one coming forward, we will move on to the consent agenda. Approval of council minutes from our July 15 regular council meeting, approval of liquor license for Mount Vernon P&P, and approval of fireworks permit for Cornell Homecoming. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, public hearing. Item 1, public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder. And now open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Move on to resolution 85/2019A, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 2.3 million general obligation refunding capital loan notes. Chris?
So this is just the refinancing of the Build America bonds. The reimbursement for the interest-bearing portion of the Build America bonds has decreased just about every year that we've had them on the books. We're capable of refinancing them now, and financial advisors have stated to us that it's probably time to get them out of that program and into a non-taxable basis again. So that's all we're doing, is no additional debt, just refinancing what we've got.
And this is what we spoke through at the last meeting as well, correct?
Yep.
Unless anybody has any questions, I'll entertain a motion on.
I move approval of resolution 8-5-2019A, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance not to exceed 2,000,003 GO bonds.
Second.
Any comments? Comments, roll call please, Sue.
Bush.
Yes.
Weisler.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Okay, next item, public hearing on an ordinance, amending ordinance 1-27-2003C, establishing the White Pines Planned Unit Development Overlay District of the City of Mount Vernon. Now open public hearing on this. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? Seeing no one coming forward, I'm going to close the public hearing. Move on to ordinance 85/2019A, amending the White Pines Planned Unit Overlay District, identified in ordinance 1-27-2019. Chris?
So really, this is, I know the maps say Lemon Lane, but Lemon Lane is Wolf Lane. The area has been vacant for quite some time. It was originally supposed to be 14 units, so a series of townhomes throughout that entire center island. Mr. Dixon, who's actually in the audience, if you have any questions, is wishing to bookend. So there's almost like single-family homes on what would be the west side of the island. So 2 single units, and then the rest were going to be 2 units apiece, 6 of them. Mr. Dixon has asked to do the 2 single units on the east side as well. So basically you'd have 4 2-unit structures bookended by 4 1-unit structures. So staff really doesn't have a problem with it. There wasn't a lot of specific information provided in the original PUD. It's kind of an odd approval, but so essentially all we're doing is just amending this to decrease by 2 units and then the new layout.
And planning and zoning already signed off.
Correct.
So I don't see any.
It'd just be nice to see some movement
Exactly.
in that
That's
area.
all it takes to spark something.
So there were a tremendous amount of drawings that were in the packet. Were those just to spur an idea of what things could potentially be?
Yes, in case you had any questions of what could potentially be constructed there.
Good visual.
Yeah, there aren't any specific So I'm used to like 5 or 6 page PUD agreements in which they kind of lay out everything. As you can see, the original ordinance didn't have that. It just references the map, so honestly, that's basically all it is, just reduce it to units. And then they'd have to follow through with our design standards, making sure that they meet the surrounding neighborhood, but that's kind of where the limitation stops.
Well, I don't entertain a motion for the approval.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 8-5-2019A, ordinance amending ordinance 127-203C, establishing the White Plains Planned Unit Overlay District of the City of Mount Vernon, Lake County, Iowa.
Second.
Any comments? No comments? Roll call, please, Sue.
Broadbush,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Weisler,
Yes.
For Lance, it'll have to go to the next meeting because there's only 3 people here that can't waive any readings tonight. So at the next meeting, they could waive the 3rd and it would take effect effectively shortly thereafter, so.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next item. And Chris, this is a resolution everybody should be looking at on this.
Yes, yep. It has the descriptive paragraph in there and the actual number at the top is right.
So for resolution 8-5-2019B, ordering construction of certain public improvements, approving preliminary plans, and fixing a date for hearing thereon, and taking bids therefore. 4 improvements known as the 8th Avenue Railroad Quiet Zone Project. Chris?
It's only been 3 years.
Yeah.
Probably time to move this forward, so we finally got to a point with the railroad that we can move this project forward. So the hope is that we get bids and we can still do the project yet this fall. I'd like to get this project done before the First Street overlay happens within the county so that we can detour a short distance versus sending everybody a long way around. So the sooner the better with this.
Yeah, this would be a great item to have off the list.
I think this was mentioned when we went through the interview process for a replacement city manager 3.5 more years ago. This was one of the topics. What are your feelings about this?
Yeah.
This has been out there a long time. And did the fees come down or?
The estimate did come down. So the estimates fluctuated back and forth depending on what the railroad came back with. So at one point, the railroad had it all the way up to $150,000 because there was some equipment that they wanted to put up and down the tracks before this intersection, and then they figured out that they already had that there, so then they dropped back down to $70,000 an hour between 50 and 70 from an estimate standpoint. So it's just, yeah, like I said, it's just time to get it off the books.
Big money well spent.
City Rapids is doing it in their downtown. That should be we should follow their example, but I know that's happening there. I would make a motion to approve resolution 8-5-2019B. Ordering construction of certain public improvements, approving preliminary plans, fixing a date for hearing thereon, and taking bids therefore for improvements plans known as the 8th Avenue Road Crossing Quiet Zone Project.
I'll second. Comments? No comments? Roll call, please, Sue.
Weisler,
Yes.
Broadbush,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Great. Next item, resolution 8-5-2019C, approving the installation of streetlights within the Stonebrook 6th and 7th edition subdivision according to the terms set forth in the existing street light contract. Chris?
Really don't have a lot to add. There's 3 new streetlight locations that the city will take on for payment when everything is adopted and approved for our standards.
Yeah.
I'm reading streetlights and thinking traffic signals here.
Yeah.
So maybe what else? What the heck are you doing?
No,
Yeah.
just lights at the intersection,
Got it.
basically.
So I'll move approval of Resolution 8-5-2019C, approving the installation of streetlights within Stonebrook 6th and 7th edition.
I'll second it.
Any comments? Any comments, roll call please, Sue.
Herman.
Yes?
Brodovich.
Yes.
Weisler.
Yes.
All right, next item, Mayor proclamation proclaiming September 6, 2019 as the 14th annual Five Seasons Stand Down Day. Bear with as I read through. 14th annual Five Seasons Stand Down Day proclamation. Whereas Lynn County Veteran Affairs in partnership with the Cedar Rapids Metro Area Veterans Council, the Iowa City VA Medical Center, and the Lynn County Continuum of Care will hold Lynn County's 14th annual Stand Down Day for homeless and near homeless veterans and non-veterans. And whereas stand down is a term used in times of war in which exhausted combat units come off the battlefield to rest and recover in a place of safety. And whereas according to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, the first stand down was organized in 1988 by a group of Vietnam veterans in San Diego. And whereas today's stand down also refers to a community-based program that assists homeless and near homeless veterans transition to community living by providing access to human service agencies, including benefits, counseling, employment and training assistance, eye exam screenings, healthcare screenings, housing services, legal assistance, mental health treatment, and substance abuse counseling. And whereas stand downs has been used as an effective tool in reaching out to homeless veterans nationally, reaching more than 200,000 veterans and their family members. Now, therefore, I, Jamie Hampton, Mayor of the City of Mount Vernon, do hereby proclaim September 6, 2019 as 14th Annual Five Seasons Stand Down Day in the City of Mount Vernon, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of this event to assist veterans and to express gratitude to those who have served and continue to serve. So, more than happy to throw our support behind that. So, all right, we will move on to old business. I will entertain a motion to untable this item.
Untable this item.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion and consideration of purchasing equipment for generator repair. Chris?
So the generator that is at our old water plant, the radiator is bad. We talked about trying to fix it, but the gentleman that came out and looked at it said you try and fix it with existing parts, it would probably be about the low end of the replacement. So at this point, we've just decided to replace the radiator unit on this generator at an amount not to exceed $5,000. And as a foreshadowing, this generator and all of our generators are about the same age, so expect this to happen more frequently.
So, okay. So to that end, does it make sense to buy one and get them on a rotation where they're not all the same age?
Not necessarily. So what I have Alex doing is going through each one of them and trying to determine whether or not there's some general maintenance that needs to be done on each one. So, you know, the radiator and this generator, but you know, the generator, for instance, at the Memorial Park is a little bit more sheltered. It may be fine, but it might have some other parts that need to be taken a look at. So, just as a general heads up, don't be surprised if we get through all of our generators, that we continue to just do the general maintenance so they perform when needed. They do quarterly tests on them, so they run them. And that's usually when we find out there's a problem.
Yeah, not a good time to find out.
So I'll move approval of the request to replace the radiator and associated parts not to exceed $5,000.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, motion for approval, consideration of claims list. Anybody have anything? five Monday months. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion on the claims list.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims list dated August 6th, 2019.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of pay application number 8, Lester Burrish Family Community Wellness Center project. Chris?
This pay application is in the amount of $308,913.33. The architects have reviewed the pay application and find it good for payment. If you've driven by there lately, you can see the roof is on, the parking lot was actually finished for today. So it's getting there.
Weather is helping immensely.
Yeah,
Even
it's
though we get some rain.
staying awfully dry, which is kind of nice.
So I'll move approval of pay application number 8 in the amount of $308,913.32.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of pay application number 4, Fifth Avenue Northwest and First Street West traffic signal installation.
This pay application is in the amount of $55,438.68. The lights are up. They were programming them today. I don't know if they got them complete, but they started all flashing red, and then they got it switched on Friday to red and yellow, and then today they were working on getting it programmed to what it's supposed to be, but I don't know if they got it all complete.
It's working.
Is it?
Good.
With that in mind, then I would make a motion to pay, approve pay application number 4, in the amount of $55,438.68 on that single project.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of change order request number 14 for the Lester Burrish Family Community Wellness Center project. Chris?
Staff is just asking that you formally deny this. The floors have actually already been poured. Barrier 1 is an additive to the concrete that the interior floors where the flooring, basketball flooring needs to go, has to be certain moisture tested. They had talked about putting barrier 1 in, this additive in order to help facilitate getting those moisture tests met. But there's already a barrier, moisture barrier that needs to be placed in between the concrete and the floor. So what would have ended up happening is we probably would have been in a situation, should we had to try to go after somebody's warranty in the future, is to muddy the waters. So the flooring contractor would have said, go talk to barrier 1. Barrier 1 said, we'll replace the floor, but not the installation cost. So there really wasn't any incentive to put it in at this point. And again, they've gone ahead and poured the floors anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. But formally denying the request, just so we have record of it.
Why would the contractor recommend it? Well, yeah, that's.
Well, to be honest with you, the moisture requirements in the specifications for the floor are pretty high. Chances are they're going to meet them is pretty slim. They were hoping that by adding the barrier 1, they could eliminate the secondary barrier in between the flooring and the concrete.
Yeah.
That's where the warranties really got into kind of a back and forth. And so when they bid the project with this in mind. After they did their research on the warranty is when they decided to back off the recommendation.
And we talked about this before.
Yeah, this has been ongoing for a while.
So I move approval of rejecting the request to change order number 14.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We tend to.
That's not the verbiage.
That was
Yeah.
weird.
That's the verbiage we usually have to ask. All right, next item, discussion consideration of change order request number 16 for Lester Burrish Family Community Wellness Center project.
So this change order has been negotiated over the course of the last 3 or 4 months as well. I've had questions on whether or not we actually owe any money for the extension of days. And the simple answer I can give you is, that's debatable. I would say no, per the contract. However, they do have merits to the number of actual days that were caused to be extended were caused by the winter weather that was outside the normal. So after they did the analysis, there were 28 days. Garling's claim is that, of course, they have to maintain the site while, even when those days are going. So they originally came at the city with 28 days and $40,000. We said, no way. So they came back at 28 days and just under $20,000.
Good.
I'm recommending approval of this change order. This is one that we could probably argue in principle, but on the backside, it would cause more problems than it would solve. So I've also included with this the change order list, where we're at. We're at 22 right now. Out of the $385,984, with this change order approved, we're at 282, 283. We're over 50% complete. So I'm comfortable with where we're at. I feel like they have put the pressure on their subcontractors to really start making progress. They brought additional subcontractors from other companies on the job site in order to facilitate us getting back on schedule or getting closer to schedule. This does move the completion date out to the end of October right now. So, again, this has been a negotiated thing for the last 3 or 4 months. Finally received the architect's recommended approval. I'm recommending that we approve this change order at this month.
And since it's been so dry over the last month, so we should charge them again for
It's unusually dry.
They have made a significant amount of progress, I would say, over the course of the last month.
Without a doubt.
We're getting there.
So I'll move approval of change order number 16, the amount of $19,997.87, $999.87, excuse me.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of setting a public hearing date for the rezoning of property legally described in plat of survey 2315 to the city of Mount Vernon, Iowa, from ag to limited industrial district with a public use overlay. Chris?
So this is the future public works site. The reason that we don't just put a public use overlay over the top of ag is that a public use overlay maintains the base zoning district's requirements. So building coverage, impervious surface coverage, and the ag are far more stringent than they would be in limited industrial, which is why we're pushing to rezone this to limited industrial, because we're going to have at least 3 or 4 buildings. We will have a compost site, we will have concrete, we will far exceed what ag allows, even if we did the public purpose overlay. So on the flip side to that, though, by adding the public use overlay on top of the limited industrial, it should give everybody some sense that we're not going to allow just any industrial use. So by putting the public use overlay on top of it, somebody would have to come and ask you to change that in the future. They couldn't just move in an industrial use if the city ever moved out. So that's kind of our checks and balances there, is to make sure that, yes, we are going to have a limited industrial district off the railroad tracks, but at the same time, it's designated specifically for public uses.
Makes sense.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing date
The 16th.
for the
I did have the wrong
16th
date.
of
So it's September 16th.
September, okay, for September 16th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of setting a public hearing date for the creation of a public use overlay District on property locally known as 855 Palisades Road Southwest.
This is actually for the wellness center, so we have a public use overlay at that corner as well.
So same thing?
Yeah, it limits the use, again, to give people a sense of good feeling that, it's not gonna be anything other than a public building.
So I'll move approval to set the public hearing date for September 3rd, 2019 for the property known as 855 Palisades Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of setting a public hearing date on ordinance amending chapter 910, parking for personal and recreational vehicles in the city of Mount Vernon, Iowa.
So we had planning and zoning take a look at this because we have conflicting language. One section of our code says that you can park a recreational vehicle in your front yard, on a driveway, or a surface as long as it doesn't cover the sidewalk. We also have another section that says you can't have it in the front yard, period. They're both under recreation, so as far as enforcement has gone, it's been kind of a convoluted system. So the compromise is, planning and zoning is recommending that we allow recreation uses to be parked in the front yard from essentially April or May to October. So you can have them there during the season, and then they have to give them for the rest of the year, as long as they don't cover the sidewalk.
You don't want a Christmas vacation thing going on?
We still get that a lot in the street as well, but, yeah, I think it's a compromise between those that have them and then bring them home as they're using them through the season, and at the same time, not having something permanently parked at a location as well. So you'll see that amendment, you're welcome to make changes, that's just what P and Z kind of come up with.
But they can have them in their backyard all year long?
Side to back, or?
Side to back. It's supposed to be on hard surface, that's usually where everybody gets into trouble. They don't either want to gravel or asphalt or pave an additional side or rear parking.
You just put a block under each tire.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, so that's usually what it ends up kind of coming down to is we do have other issues with them, people attempting to live out of them, but one problem at a time, I think. And it should be 19, not 18, as far as setting the date, August 19th.
So I move approval to set the public hearing date for, to amend the parking regulations for recreational vehicles for, is it September? 18th?
August 19th.
August 19th, August 18th. August 18th,
19th.
August 19th.
You were wrong.
It should be
2019.
Oh, 2019, excuse me.
That was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, now we tried again.
I'll second what she said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of pay application number 2, 2019 sewer plant improvement project.
This pay application is in the amount of $38,632.75. If you've driven by there, they've actually done a decent amount of work at that location as well, and moved fence out, so they're moving along. Emily is here. I had her come to talk about the next two change orders, just to give you an idea where we're at, but if you had any questions on the pay app, she's here as well. It's pretty self-explanatory.
I would make a motion to approve pay application number 2 on the 2019 sewer plant project, totaling $38,652.75.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of change order number 1, 2019 sewer sanitary sewer plant improvement project.
So overall, this change order is actually pretty simple. Kind of two change orders in one, but it's an overall increase of $3,732.43. So the credit that we're getting back is because they didn't have to go as deep with the splitter box, meaning the box coming off the clarifiers, they didn't have to go as deep, so they made up some ground that way, and we got a credit of $7,487.66. The ad is, we knew when we started this project that we wanted to have the clarifiers inspected. Those are the two big round basins, which the UV disinfection comes off of. And Custer's Water is the original manufacturer, and they're out of Tennessee, South Carolina.
And they're, hi, sorry. They're not, so the people that originally manufactured this got bought out by Custer's, and so they're not even the true original, I wouldn't say, but they are the ones that are now taking over that part of the company and kind of merged it in, so. They would be handling all the service.
So we would recommend approval of this one. We didn't even know, there's no point in doing some of this work and leaving old equipment in there if we're spending this kind of money.
Yep.
So I move approval of change order number 1 for the 2018 sewer plant improvement in the amount of $3,732.43.
So second, unless Eric had a question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of change order number 2 for the 2019 sanitary sewer plant improvement project.
So this is really why I had Emily here to explain this change order. Now, I will say that we discussed the clarifiers when we first started this project. They weren't able to inspect those ahead of time, so we knew that once we got the approval for the project to move forward, that we would be looking at the infrastructure inside the clarifiers at a later date. Here's the later date. I think when Emily and I talked, this was slightly higher than we had both kind of expected originally, but I'll let her kind of explain what all goes into this, and then we can discuss whether or not we want to move forward.
Okay. So I would say this is one of the later dates. But basically on the clarifiers, this is to repair some wearable parts, I guess I would say, on the drive mechanism. So clarifiers, they spin and scrape the sludge that settles into the center, and then that is returned. And so there's a big drive unit that turns that big clarifier. It's 54-foot diameter clarifier. That equipment turns. The manufacturer has recommended that the parts that we're looking at replacing as part of this change order are replaced every 7 to 10 years. It's been 18 years.
Wow.
So obviously it's like little things on your car too. You can kind of push it a little bit further than it's supposed to go, but if you start pushing it too far, you're gonna have things break eventually. So basically when we break down this change order, we have 2 clarifiers, so each clarifier, the price is double just by having that. And then on top of it, what it ends up being is about $15,000 to $20,000 a clarifier to replace the drive unit just in the parts that we're getting from the actual manufacturer. So that's half the change order of $40,000 roughly. And then the other half is because replacing these, the different items that are the wearable parts underneath require actually lifting the entire bridge off of the clarifier and shipping that unit, that assembly, back to the South Carolina facility, the factory facility, to rebuild it. There's quite a bit of labor they have to run, and because we have to keep one clarifier in operation at a time, we have to use first one clarifier, tear it apart, send it back, get it back to the site, and then put it back in place and reset everything. They have to run a crane 4 different times roughly, just to pull the bridge out. They have to support the entire center structure. If you really want to know all that goes into it, they gave me a breakdown of their whole process, and I have parts and everything, but I'm assuming you aren't curious about that. So basically half this price is labor, half of it is parts.
Bottom line is, we're going to do this at some point in the future, whether or not we do it with this phase or the next phase that happens in 6 to 7 years. we can't obviously keep pushing this down the road. So the goal that I had for V&K when we started this project was doing about half of the improvements, including the UV disinfection with this, and then half the improvements with the nutrient reduction strategies that had to be done as well as part of our permit section. So they're both roughly 1.5 to 1.7 million, the two phases in themselves. So at this point, I realize it's a lot of money. However, while they're working on the UV disinfection by the clarifiers, now would probably be the easier of the two times to get this done.
Yeah, and it would be hard to hope that we could go another 6 or 7 years if we've already gone well past its life expectancy.
And if these wearable parts aren't replaced, you could have a catastrophic failure, which could damage other parts, which would be even more expensive. So, it's pretty important that those be taken care of, and this is something that the city staff definitely could not have done on their own. This is always gonna be a large expense whenever it's done.
Have we put something like these parts and the maintenance of them on a maintenance schedule so that we don't let 18 years lapse again? So we keep up to date with what we should be looking at out there?
So the easy answer would be obviously not. I would say that we're on a schedule of replacing. So to give you a rough idea, if we wanted to do just the UV disinfection, that's all that was required of us to do. The 1.6 million that we're doing now, or 1.7 million that we're doing now, is some pump maintenance. As a matter of fact, they pulled a big screw pump out. I have a picture that Alex took with the crane today. But we are doing some of that general maintenance with these projects, so we're trying to look ahead. And then once this is done, then we'll try and get a true maintenance schedule put together. But up until this point, I would say I highly doubt it.
Okay, but what I wanted to hear is we will be doing it.
Yes.
And that's
So,
what you said, so
Yeah,
that's.
that
what I
was
wanted.
kind of the goal, is to break
Okay.
overall this into two parts and then keep kind of moving forward. Because by the time we get this done, it'll be time for our permit renewal, and who knows what the DNR is going to come back and want next. So,
Do we have a funding mechanism for this?
SRF, this is the state revolving fund.
The only thing I have to say about this is, I think V&K should have had a little bit of a note at the beginning of this saying, we can't see it, but based on it being 18 years old, this is how much it could run us. I think you kind of, there should have been something in there, the warning that this thing's 18 years old. That was known, it was 18 years old.
So staff knew this.
Yeah.
And that was through the process. As far as the bid project goes, we knew this is, as Emily said, this is one of a few things where we knew we didn't have it inspected prior to the
Right.
bid, but we know that there are other items in there that.
And like I said, there should be a worst case scenario saying, this is possible, so that this isn't something like, oh man, we got $90,000 worth of stuff here. You knew it was 18 years old. It's not like the system is unique. There's probably this has probably been done hundreds and hundreds of times all over the country. So you know roughly that it runs between this and give us a heads up that, hey, we could need an extra $50,000 to $90,000 or $50,000 to $120,000. I think there should have been some note in there to let us know. I'm not saying we're not gonna do it, I would just like the warning.
No, I
that
think to a
there's
certain extent they
something
did,
going
though.
on there.
Because the SRF funding, we had to give them a maximum amount, and we asked for $250,000 more
Yeah.
than
So
what the original project cost.
when we
was.
accepted the project, we did make comments that there was a significant contingency, and we anticipated that because it came in under the total cost that we had given for the project. And so we had made a comment at that time that we anticipate that there's gonna be, because it's a rehab project, because rehabs are notoriously, you get in, you find more stuff. I can tell you right now, we found a couple more things that are not anywhere near that amount, obviously, but some smaller things that'll probably be back again at the next meeting. And there's really, some of the stuff, there's just really no way of knowing how they're gonna do it. So that's why we didn't do it. We did know that it was coming, and if we weren't sufficiently communicating that to you, then I apologize, but when we bid it, we did know that this item would be coming
Yeah, so we put additional funds in our SRF request, and we also had the contingency in this. We just couldn't tell you specifically what those were going to be. This is just one. Now, I will tell you that when Emily and I first talked about this, the expectation was it wasn't necessarily going to be 87,000. We were kind of hoping in the 40 to 50,000 dollar range. There's a lot more obviously that goes
And
into.
that's what I'm saying, why wasn't that?
Because we
designated
didn't
as 40 to
inspect all of
50,000
these.
or-
We didn't inspect all of what we did, Gary.
Yeah, you do have that in your.
Yes.
Okay.
So that additional
Well,
amount.
that would have been nice to say in there, well, we expected 50 and we're getting 87. That's just something like.
Yeah, I mean,
It wasn't like, oh, shoot,
No.
80, no, it was 50 and we.
So we were expecting
Yeah,
somewhere
that's
in the
why.
neighborhood of, like I said, $200,000 to $300,000 in
Right.
additional cost outside of the 1.63 something that the original bid was. So the original bid was about,
Original bid was 1.39.
Yeah.
And we had about, I want to say 160. I think it's 160,000 was the contingency in the SRF
so
loan.
so we were approved for 1.6 plus a contingency. Does that make sense?
You just blew half of it on that.
Pretty close.
And the other ones, if we do reach that point, we're gonna have to add to the second phase of the project that's coming in 6 to 7 years. We get like 6-year reprieve,
Yeah.
5 or 6 year reprieve.
I don't know, time flies, but yeah.
The
we
state
had
gave us like a
those
5 or 6 year reprieve to start the nutrient reduction portion of it, so. But that'll be $1.7, $1.8 million as well. So what we don't get here, we're likely to get there.
What'd you have, Tom?
Emily, does the approval of this change order, what does it do to the timing of completion?
So what, so we gave them significant time to get the project completed. They have until June. And their schedule that they submitted originally only went out till the end of November. They requested an additional 42 days with this. We did not give them that at this time. If we were to add it, it would most likely be at the end of this project. There is an interim completion date for the UV system of November 1st that we're pretty firm on because that is a DNR date. They did start talking about if this pushes them back. We're just kind of waiting to see, I guess, at this point. I told them that we would entertain an extension if it became apparent that this was the cause of an extension being needed, but at this point, the schedule with the manufacturer is a little uncertain as to how long that they will take to get it in. So I guess, I told them we're waiting on that. We didn't approve any additional days at this time as part of this. The reason being that they have significant time in the spring still to handle that if it would need to be
It
extended.
just depends on whether or not we have a year like we did this last year.
Yeah. And, do you have a question?
It would just be nice to button it up, from November 1st to 42 days. Yes, they've got the window to June. It's nice to button it up before the
Yeah, so we don't agree that,
calendar year.
at this point, we don't agree that they have, that it's gonna impact the UV schedule. They aren't very comfortable with the date that we've given them, the November 1st deadline, because they have some manufacturers who haven't confirmed delivery and that kind of thing. And I think honestly that they're concerned about hitting that date, so they want to add it to that November 1st date, and I'm not inclined to do that at this point. I know if I give 42 days, it'll probably take 42 days.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I told them at this point that if we were gonna add it, we would add it to the end completion date. And they are reluctantly agreeing, I think, at this point, but I'm sure, just like the discussion earlier with some of the other change orders, as that goes on, if it becomes apparent, they'll probably be back to discuss that again. But at this point, that cost right there is a fixed cost. The days are still negotiable, I guess I would say at this point, to see what they can get back from the manufacturer and how long that actually takes.
Never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
So I'll move approval of change order number 2 for the 2019 sewer plan improvements in the amount of $87,946.89, with no additional days at this point in time being accommodated within that request.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
Next item, discussion consideration of proposed repairs to 7th Avenue Southwest.
So if you've either driven or walked this section going in the backside of the middle school, you will have seen this picture where the storm intake is actually offset from the center. So
Has been for years.
Nick and I have talked about, we understand the concept of putting it, I mean, normally you don't do what they did here, you crown the street and push it off to the sides, but we understand their thought process. The fact is that it was offset, so it's really not doing anything. Where you see all the asphalt patching around where the storm is, and that's where the water's sitting. Originally, staff had thought about doing this project on their own, but with everything that's going on at Public Works, the site itself, and the relatively small bid that we received for doing it, we would just like to go ahead and let the contractor do this for $7,476 and get it done. Our biggest issue is, we could probably do it as a staff, but it's probably gonna end up getting into school, the start of school, and there's enough issues right now with construction going in and around there. These guys can get in and get out before school starts. So that's kind of what Nick and I have talked about, making sure that we try to disrupt as least amount possible. Just to give you some idea, this is the same company that did the concrete work on the pool, on the backside of the pool there where we're putting the acid. So, that's a great amount, great dollar amount, and they do quick work, so.
They could be done before school picks up, or?
The word I received was if weather continues as is, their projected start date was a week from today, and they were hoping to take them, again, weather pending, about 3 days. Then we have to let it cure for, a set amount of time, about 3 to 5 days, hopefully, and then we'll be driving on it, so.
Especially school buses.
Yes.
We can, I mean, if they were to get into a pinch and it looked like they ran into something, I mean, we could pull our staff off and help out as well, but I think right now, if they can do it in 3 days at the schedule that they're saying, it's well worth the $7,500.
So is the blue arrowed area the area they're replacing? or-
They're removing all that to fix the,
Right.
there is a storm inlet on the curb. There is actually storm inlets that whole street, but none of them have ever seen any water because of
Right.
the crown in the street. So, we believe we can get enough fall to that curb, the inlet on the curb, and eliminate the one in the street, which is causing all the problems.
That'd be great.
It's been a rough looking area for a long time.
It's bad.
Yeah.
For years and years. Yeah, for 7,000. Entertain a motion?
All right, I'll move approval of the allocation of funds for the 7th Avenue Southwest repairs in the amount of $7,760.
Second, 74.76.
Dyslexia.
It's been a long day.
I'll second 74.76.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. All right, move on to reports. Anybody have anything to share? Anything from your standpoint, anything council committee related?
I can say that I don't know if anybody heard, but John passed away today. About 3 hours ago, I guess. That was a big
Condolences to the
deal there.
Street light was out.
Tom, did you have something?
The date that Chris had in his
Yeah, it's
report,
supposed to be August.
it's August 13th.
That's like 5 on
It
this
was
one.
bad.
And
Can you try to scramble to get this back put together this time?
as well as September 10th, but the first one is August 13th, 2019.
In September
Chris, anything else you want to highlight from your air-riddled report?
No. Thank you for,
See what English grade after this?
you know, really out of 103 pages, it's not too bad.
Kick a man when he's down. All right, with that said, I'll entertain a motion to enter into closed session.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Take a little break while everybody clears out.
And I was doing fine until that was the end of my week.
First of all,
So he would have been, 7 to 8 years older than me. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe 5.
So we should eliminate the work. I guess.
Yeah. Couple years older.
it's a good price for that.
So honestly, it would take us probably 2 weeks. And the concrete price would be almost, it's just basically like an air.
And you all ready? You're good?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to, the cities move forward and purchase a property labeled as 380 Old Lincoln Highway for purposes of a police station in the northwest corner of town.
For $475.
For $475,000, I'm sorry.
Plus cost.
I'll
Second. Anything else?
Second one, you said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting the prices there.
Job well done
Might be
to,
quite important.
job well done to everybody
Yes,
involved.
nicely done.
It's gonna be great for the community.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Meredith for bringing the building to us almost a year ago. She's the one that got us in the building, looked at us like we were crazy for not considering going into the building. I think Doug and I both assumed that the building was gonna be listed for a lot more. So we didn't give too much thought of it. She kind of pushed it, and then lo and behold, it came up, so.
Should we get the list?
No. I'll enjoy it.
No, she did this all on her own, just to,
Oh, we're close.
Oh, anything else otherwise?
Oh, I don't know if you're going, I know nothing.
No. No further business, meeting stands adjourned.